Hey, how's it going guys? Welcome back for another TOS video. So in this card review, we're going to talk about the 3 jackpot cards of the Hindu God series. Right, so they have been revealed to us I think 1 or 2 days ago, and then now we're going to go in depth and talk about their leader skill, active skill, as well as team skill for these 3 Hindu gods: Brahma, Shiva and Vishnu. Right, so let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to start off the video talking about Shiva first, right? So let's take a look at his leader skill. So when team consists of only gods and elf, team attack time is 4, extend rune movement time by 1 second. So this is a leader skill, so if you're playing duo Shiva, leader ally, you're going to get 2 second extended rune movement time. By dissolving god and elf runestones, team attack times 1.5 additionally. Right, so this, overall for these Hindu gods, they are extra, or what would I call it, as a conditional multiplier, right? This extra 1.5 times team attack is actually very easy to trigger, right, by looking at his team skill later. So overall, we can take a look at this leader skill. This Shiva is actually running a god and elf playstyle, right? Very similar to what we see in Ophiuchus, but the only difference is Ophiuchus, you need to have at least the 2 races present in the team, whereas in for Shiva case, you can actually run a mono god, or you can run, you know, the elf race is optional, right? That's the only difference between Shiva and Ophiuchus. Right, so without further ado, let's take a look at its team skill. Right, so I'm gonna touch on the team skill first, because that makes more sense. It will make more sense after taking a look at the team skill, right? The leader skill will make much more sense. So team skill, let's take a look at the one on the left first. Turn the first 5 runestone touch while moving into enchanted god runestone. So this is where you obtain your god runestones, and by dissolving that, you're going to get that 1.5 times extra team multiplier, team attack multiplier. Right, so on top of that, type of god runes also possess 50% of water effect. Right, so what does this mean? Like, how are you going to go about playing Shiva, right? So if you are going to run like this kind of team, you are pretty much going to run like a mono water god or mono water elf kind of setup, right? So it is possible if you put other attributes of god and elf, right? But most of the time you should be probably running a mono water team setup, right? So types of runestones, types of god runestones also possess 50%. How you're gonna play this is, for the first 5 runestones that you touch, right, try not to touch water runestones, right? So how do you play this, right? Basically, if there is fire god runestones, right, fire runes typically possess water effect, right? If you have dark god runestones, then dark possess water effect as well, right? Although just 50%, but it gives at least other attributes possession of water effect, right? So if you touch 5, like let's say first 5 runes, you touch all the other 4 attributes excluding water runes, right? Basically you have a full board of attacking runes, right? So this is how you're gonna play Shiva, right? So the first 5 runestones, try to avoid water runes, and then after that you pretty much have a lot of other attacking runes on the board. Right, on top of that, on the right, you can see damage received minus 10% for each god runes dissolved to the max 50%, right? So this is pretty much a very simple passive, right? But yet so important, right, in certain battles. That 50% damage reduction is actually a lot, considering that you can trigger this every single turn, right? Of course, condition is Shiva as leader and ally. So very good card here. I don't think it's gonna be the best jackpot card of the series, right? But nonetheless, a very good card still, right? So we're gonna end off with by looking at his active skill. Alright, so this will be Shiva active skill, right, at CD6, right? Basically it's going to restore all runestones in black and white to original colors, which is countering monochrome runes in the game, right? So on top of that, tap and explode 2 columns of runestones to generate enchanted water god runestones. So as you can see, Shiva active skill actually converts water god runestones, right? So it doesn't like produce elf runes and whatever. So the most ideal team setup is probably a water god setup, like a mono water god setup, just to kind of fully utilize its god runes conversion, right? So on top of that, not only does it convert, it actually explodes 2 columns, which means that it is possible to get rid of column weathered runes in the game, right? So especially when we have a very common leader ally column weathered runes, right? We can actually use this to counter that, as well as providing us some sort of attacking runes, right? So CD6 very favorable in current meta, right? But overall, I find that Shiva is not gonna be. It's pretty much like the weakest among the 3 jackpot cards, right? So with that said, let's move on to the next card. Alright, so the next card we're going to talk about is Vishnu, which is a dark god race. So his leader skill when team consists of only gods, so as compared to Shiva just now, right? So this is a mono god playstyle. So team attack times 4, so same as Shiva, team attack times 4. By dissolving light and dark in the same round, team attack and recovery times 1.5 additionally, and a 20% damage reduction. Right, so you can see very similar kind of playstyle, right, excluding the elf race from Shiva, where we have a conditional multiplier of 1.5 as well. So as I mentioned earlier, all these Hindu gods, their additional multiplier is actually very easily triggered, right, by the team skill. So what is Vishnu's team skill? So take a look at the left hand side. Turn the first 5 runestone touch while moving into enchanted while moving into enchanted god runestone. So it's very pretty much the same thing as what we have for Shiva. So light possess 50% of dark, and dark possess 50% of light, right, which is always a good thing to have. So we have 2 kind of like a offensive runes to use, right? Okay, on top of that, take a look on the right hand side. So this is what's gonna kind of trigger the additional conditional multiplier, right, for Vishnu. For each group of water, fire, earth dissolve during the first batch, 3 dark will be generated in the 3 columns on the left, and 3 light will in the 3 columns on the right. So basically what you can see here, you can kind of picture something like Azathoth, right? Vishnu is very similar to Azathoth in terms of this kind of sky drop, right? So dark rune is going to sky drop on the left, and light rune is going to sky drop on the right, below the leader and ally. So to the max 9 runes, and to trigger this you have to play dual Vishnu, right, which is, you know, obvious, right? So with this being said, we have a very stable 4 times 1.5 leader skill, right? And on top of that we have dual attacking runes, which is light and dark. So for Vishnu, you can see you can put in cards like the Hindu gods that we have mentioned very early in the card review, right? The three pretty ladies, right? We have a dark. I remember we have a dark god. I think Varuni, if I remember the name correctly, right? Is a very good team member for Vishnu, right? So overall, I think that the non-jackpot cards, right, play a big role within the jackpot cards as a team member, right? So I would highly suggest you guys to draw these Hindu gods, right? Very powerful, right? So we are not done with Vishnu. Let's take a look at his active skill. Right, so this will be Vishnu's active skill, Notion of Salvation. So he have the lowest CD among the 3 jackpot cards at CD 5. Restore monochrome runes as well for 1 round, damage received minus 50%. So this, I think, this probably stacks on top of what you have for the leader skill. Right, the more god runes dissolve, the higher the team attack, to the max times 2 for 5 runestones, which is basically his passive leader skill, which auto generates team skill, which auto generates 5 god runestones in the first place, right? So overall, it's very easy to trigger that times 2, right? And that's gonna easily increase your damage multiplier, right? So this Vishnu's active skill is very generic, I would say, right? Just a very simple damage reduction and a team multiplier. So just activate it whenever you need some sort of high bursting capability, right? And then that should settle most battles out there, right? So overall, Vishnu, I think, is going to be ranked number 2, right? Of course, Shiva will be the 3rd one, will be at number 3. So we're going to talk about the jackpot of the jackpot card. Alright, so here comes the biggest card of the entire series, right? This is Brahma. Very powerful card, right? I highly suggest you guys to draw him, right? He's super OP, right? If you're gonna pair it with Agni, as we talk about him in the past few card review, which actually gives a time tunnel effect. Alright, so let's take a look at Brahma for now. Leader skill when team consists of only gods, which is a mono god playstyle once again. Team attack times 4. If not, okay, this is going to be a bit confusing, but I'm going to clarify it in this card review. If not runestones of all 5 attributes are dissolved, right? The first batch of runestones to be dropped will be the runestones of an undissolved attribute, right? The attribute runestones that are the least in number rank first in priority, and only the first batch of runestones dissolved will be counted, right? So, they kind of clarified one part of it, right? Which is not present in the Chinese translation, right? So basically, let's say if there's 5 colors, of course this excludes the heart runes, right? So if there is 5 colors and you did not dissolve water runes, right? First batch, of course, right? So the first batch of runes to be dropped will be water runes, right? So for example, if you did not dissolve water and earth runes, right? So this is where the first bracket comes in. Attribute runestones that are the least in number ranks first in priority. So if you did not dissolve water and earth is lesser than water on the current board, right? It's gonna sky drop earth instead of water runes. So there was one part that is pretty much unclear in the entire leader skill. I went to ask a staff in Madhead, so they kind of clarified it for me. Right, so in this case, if you look at the bottom part of the leader skill, if runestones of all 5 attributes are dissolved, team attack times 1.5 additionally, right? So this part here is also does not involve the first batch, right? So if you dissolve all, like let's say if you dissolve everything except water, and water comes down as sky drop, right? That is still considered as 5 attributes dissolved, right? Which triggers the 1.5 times additional multiplier, right? So my question to Madhead is, if you dissolve 5 colors in the first batch, so does it sky drop anything, right? So the response is the sky drop, there will be absolutely no sky drop, right? So you have to be very careful with Brahma's playstyle, right? So you have to dissolve, you have to not dissolve at least one color, right? So as to trigger at least one, a color attribute sky drop. So if you dissolve, remember this, if you dissolve all 5 colors in the first batch, there will be no sky drop, right? So be very careful with Brahma when you play him. Alright, so now let's talk about Brahma's team skill. Alright, so first, turn the first 6 runestone touch into enchanted god runes each round. So this is very much the same as, pretty much the same skill as all the 3 jackpot cards. Right, so 2 fire enchanted god runes will be generated for each god runes dissolved to the max. 15 runestones to be generated, only the first batch of runestones to be counted. So this part here, right, so we have 2 separate skills of sky drop, right? So remember, for the leader skill, it will sky drop the color that you don't dissolve on first batch, right? And then here it sky drops a batch of to the max 15 fire enchanted god runes, right? So please note that the first sky drop will be the leader skill, which is the attribute that you have not dissolved in first batch. After that, followed by a sky drop of 15 enchanted fire god rune stones, right? So there will be 2 batch of sky drops, right? So which is why it is such a powerful card, right? So on top of that, 5% of HP will be recovered for each enchanted fire runes dissolved to the max 50% HP, right? So it is a very offensive / defensive kind of playstyle, right? So it's a passively defensive team skill right here, right? So while attacking, your naturally 15 runestones sky drop, right, enchanted fire god runestones will actually recover your HP as well, right, to the max 50% HP, right? So Brahma, condition is Brahma as leader and ally, right? So overall, this card here, I'll feel like it's a must draw, and Agni will be a very, very good card to kind of play this team, right? Especially if you run a mono god team, right? Agni CD is going to be 0 upon entering the battle, which means you can start your time tunnel straight away. Right? Overall, I think that it's going to be a very lazy playstyle, right? But it's going to be very, very powerful. Right, so last but not least, let's talk about Brahma's active skill, which is 6666, everything 6. Right, beginning of power, CD 6, restore monochrome runes for 1 round, extend rune movement time regardless by 6 seconds. Monsters attack time 6, combo count plus 6. Right, so basically it's a very strong active skill, right? Firstly, it's at CD6, which is very fast charging, right? Of course, extended rune movement time regardlessly, very easy, right? So be it 2-second movement time or what, you have at least 8-second rune movement time, right? So very useful there, right? So even if you don't use Brahma as a leader, right, if you throw it in any fire team, it will work out as well, right? Very useful there. Okay, so monster attack times 6, right? This basically allows Brahma to break some sort of high defense whenever there is some sort of high defense stage. And combo count plus 6 is always useful to counter high combo shields, like maybe above 8 combos or above 10 combos, which are commonly seen nowadays. Right, so overall, this is my review for these 3 jackpot cards for the Hindu gods. Right, overall, I find that Brahma is going to be the best, right, followed by Vishnu, right, very close to Brahma, and then Shiva is of course, compared to Brahma, it's not going to be that powerful, but still a good card nonetheless. Right, so overall, I find that this entire Hindu God series is worth to draw. Right, so I would suggest you guys to kind of save up on diamonds now and draw when the series opens, which is next Monday. Right, so if you enjoyed this video, do give it a like, and then as usual, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye bye.